if you want the Minnesota Vikings to beat the Detroit Lions in a very real trap game for the Vikings, hit that subscribe button. Don't jinx us. You know, week 1 when we were playing the Packers, we picked up a ridiculous amount of subscribers because I think you guys knew we needed that extra juice going into that Packers game. I think we need that extra juice now. We got some injury news to go over and some mailbag questions coming from the Vikings fans. But hit that sub button and don't jinx us against the Detroit Lions this Sunday. Welcome in the Vikings Now. I'm your host, Patrick Siepman. So we do have a mailbag to get into after this, but some breaking injury news from our Minnesota Vikings. Andrew Booth Jr. and Harrison Smith both officially ruled out for Sunday. Andrew Booth Jr. hasn't really been getting a ton of reps with the Vikings during his rookie season so far. But obviously Harrison Smith, the big news, he left the Monday night game with a concussion, and it was very unlikely that he was going to be ready to go on that short week Sunday versus the Lions. So he is out. And then out of nowhere, Eric Kendricks is now on the Vikings injury report with a toe injury. Kevin O'Connell came out today and said he is expected to work through this toe injury and should be ready to go. But a little shocking, a little concerning that we find Eric Kendricks on the injury report. But now we have a Vikings mailbag coming in straight from the great Minnesota Vikings fans. We're discussing a ton of great topics today, even a potential Lamar Jackson trade and what would need to happen for the Vikings to bring in Lamar. We're going to be breaking down Cameron Danztler, a bunch of other guys on this Vikings roster. But the first question coming in right now from Skull Nations, why did Cameron Danztler get benched in the second half versus the Philadelphia Eagles? This is a question that, honestly, right after the game when I was talking to my dad, I said, you know what, I think Cameron Danztler had a pretty good game against the Eagles. I'm curious why he got benched. Well, we got some film. We're going into the All-22 that we need to break down for you guys. So here's the first play. This was the Quez Watkins 57-yard touchdown throw from Jalen Hurts. And if you see here, it kind of looks like at the top of your screen and at the top of the circle, it looks like Cam Bynum. Typically, he's supposed to take Quez running that streak route, but the Vikings were actually in this deep cover 3 look. So he was actually supposed to peel off of the streak route, and Cameron Danztler was supposed to continue the run with him, and he ended up just peeling off and taking the tight end right here, running this little out route. So again, that was a miscommunication on Cam Danztler, a huge reason why he got benched. But this was the play that Ed Donatel chose to talk about in his press game conference on why he ended up benching Cameron Danztler. So right here, Cameron Danztler, he's just in a man-to-man on A.J. Brown. Pretty simple. He's supposed to stay hip for hip with him, step for step. You guys know what man-to-man defense is. Now, if you look at this picture, this was about 2 seconds after the picture I just showed you guys. Cameron Danztler thinks he's running a flat zone over here, just leaving A.J. Brown wide open in the middle of the field. And Cameron Danztler, he's had this problem with the Vikings in years past. These miscommunications have definitely been an issue for him. I mean, this is just pretty unexcusable on a big Monday night game. But I've been calling him Mr. Miscommunication, Cameron Danztler. If you remember the game-winning touchdown game against these Detroit Lions last season, where that game-winning touchdown where the wide receiver just ran a simple comeback route in the end zone, and everybody was looking at each other like, what the hell just happened? How does that happen where you just allow a wide receiver to walk into the end zone and get the game-winning touchdown with 10 seconds left in the game? And then also, if you remember in the 2020 season, the touchdown he gave up against the Seattle Seahawks on that Sunday night game where Harrison Smith is looking at Cameron Danztler like, what are you doing? So I do think this Vikings coaching staff is maybe losing a little faith and kind of just getting tired of the miscommunications from Cameron Danztler. Now this leads me to Akayleb Evans. He filled in for Cameron Danztler in the second half versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and he kind of played his ass off. You know, Ed Donatel in his post-game presser, he said he just plays hard, he plays with tenacity, and he doesn't have those little simple mistakes that we see Cameron Danztler starting to make. I think this Sunday, I think they should start splitting reps. I don't think this should be Cameron Danztler gets the start and we'll see what it is. I think this should be Akayleb Evans and Cameron Danztler starting the split time. I'll throw this back to you. What are your thoughts? Do you trust Cameron Danztler? Trust is such a huge word, especially defensively in the NFL. Trusting that your teammate will be in the right position and the coaches trusting that their player will be in the right position to make a play. You can call all the right play calls, but if you don't trust your corner, your safety, whatever it may be, to be in the right zone or to be in the right assignment, it really does not matter. So I think the Vikings coaching staff is losing trust in Dantzler. But what say you? Do you trust Cameron Danztler? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Coming in from Martin Neuter, he said, is there any chance Lamar Jackson ends up on the Vikings? Okay, so the Lamar Jackson trade rumors have been kind of thrown around the past couple of weeks with him obviously not getting that contract extension that he wanted with the Baltimore Ravens. But I saw this on Twitter. I broke it down into our own graphics here. What would need to happen for the Vikings to get Lamar Jackson? So the Vikings would need to trade Kirk Cousins first off. This is a completely unlikely scenario, but the first thing that would need to happen is Kirk would need to waive his no-trade clause, and we would need to find a suitor that's taking Kirk Cousins onto their team, and then the Ravens would need to franchise tag Lamar. I think the franchise tag would be around $48 million for Lamar next season, and then the Ravens would need to then trade Lamar to the Vikings, and then the Vikings would need to extend Lamar Jackson and give him the contract that he desires. Now, if we're looking at the highest paid quarterbacks and kind of where Lamar will end up here, Rodgers getting $50 million a year, Russell Wilson getting $49, Kyler getting $46, Deshaun getting $45, and Mahomes getting $43. I guarantee you, I think Lamar is probably sitting there wanting that, $49 to $50 million guaranteed. But I don't think he'll get it from the Ravens. That's why I'm kind of putting a little more juice and a little more, validity into these trade rumors. But with the Vikings, I think it's unlikely. I think this is extremely unlikely. But like I said, we can speculate. We can see kind of the path to Lamar eventually joining our Minnesota Vikings. It's not really on the focus of a lot of Vikings fans, obviously, but with him not getting to that contract extension with Baltimore, could leave the door open in this offseason for the Vikings to potentially, if it doesn't work out with Kirk, to bring in Lamar. Now, this one next question coming in from Down Goes GB. I'm hoping that stands for Down Goes Green Bay. He says, how good is this Lions offense under offensive coordinator Ben Johnson? If you guys don't know, Ben Johnson is the kind of new and up-and-coming offensive coordinator that will be available or will be a candidate for head coaching jobs after this NFL season. If we're looking at what the Lions have done through 2 games, pretty impressive. Yards per game, they're third in the NFL at 421 yards. Passing yards, sitting around 19th overall at 219, but the rushing yards at 186, that's third in the NFL. And then obviously they're dropping a ton of points on their opponents at 35.5 points per game. That has them second in the NFL. And this is really my biggest concern for the Vikings against the Lions this Sunday. If you look at the Vikings' defensive stats this year, immediately what jumps out to me is the rush yards per game, giving up 137. When the Lions are at 186, this is incredibly concerning. This is definitely the biggest thing on the Vikings' big board. It's got to be stop the run. Duh, kind of a no shit kind of statement from me, but I think on the Vikings big board, I think stopping the run is going to be key. Also, what Ben Johnson has done for Jared Goff, you look at his numbers this year, he's made him extremely comfortable. Completion percentage sitting around 57.7, 471 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Jared Goff hasn't been throwing the ball all over the lot, but he has been taking care of the football and been effective in the opportunities he has been given. And one of the guys he's been throwing to is Amon-Ra St. Brown. This guy is an absolute stud. If you guys don't know about him already, Vikings fans, he's kind of a fantasy football demon right now in the fantasy football world, but obviously he has 17 receptions, 180 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's the biggest X factor, most explosive player on this Lions offense, in my opinion, and he's going to cause some troubles for our guy, Patrick Peterson, Cameron Danztler, or Akayleb Evans, whoever we decide to throw on him. But what say you? I want you guys to predict it. Get down below. How many points do you think the Lions will score on Sunday versus the Vikings? Right now, I would love if the Vikings could hold them to under 24. You know, this offense is coming in hot. I do think the Vikings have a chance to hold this team to less than 3 touchdowns, but that would be the number for me. If we could hold them to under 21, 24 points, I like our chances in winning this game. But I want to give a shout out to the proud sportsbook sponsor of today's show, BetUS. If you go to chatsports.com/bet and you use promo code CHAT125, you'll get a 125% deposit bonus. What does that mean? You put $100 into your account, they'll give you $125 just for free play. If you're looking at what you could bet on, The Vikings right now are favored by 6 points against the Lions. Little shocking to me. You know, my Vikings homer side of me wants to take that -6, but honestly, my betting side of me, I think the Lions +6 is a very interesting bet. But when it comes to over-under, I would probably be leaning the over in this. I think these are two highly powered offenses. You know, Ben Johnson, what he's been able to do over there. So if you go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code chat125, you'll get a 125% deposit bonus. Next question coming in from Timothy Young. Who is one player on the Vikings you are most excited to watch versus the Lions? This is a great question. A lot of names come to my mind when I think of one guy that I'm really going to be keying in on this Sunday versus the Lions. But for me, it's got to be KJ Osborn. I think KJ Osborn needs to have a game this Sunday. KJ Osborn, he's been quiet so far in this 2022 regular season. But if you look at what he did last season, the 50 receptions, 655 yards, 13.1 yards per catch, with 7 touchdowns in his second year in the NFL, I expected KJ to have a breakout year 3. But look at what he's done so far in 2 games. Only 5 receptions, 39 yards, only 7.8 yards per catch, and only 1 touchdown. I do think KJ Osborn could be set up for a big game just because, you know, Jefferson and Thielen, they're obviously going to get always the attention on this team, but I think KJ Osborn could be setting himself up pretty for a solid stat line versus the Lions. So this is my little prediction time. I'm not calling KJ out, but I'm going to call him to be on a big game because, frankly, I know the Lions' third-string corner shouldn't be able to hold him. I got him going for 6 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. I think KJ, I just think he is so talented. I think this Vikings coaching staff knows it, and he's going to be a matchup nightmare for whoever the Lions try to throw on him, with obviously Jefferson and Thielen getting a majority of the attention from that Lions defense. This one coming in for Jill Supersinski. He says, do you trust the Vikings linebackers? I feel like they have been off this year. This is a great question because this is something that I've been talking about for a good amount of time on this channel. You look at the Vikings depth chart right now. Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks. Frankly, they have not been too good this year. And Eric Kendricks is somebody, I have his jersey actually. He's one of my favorite Vikings of all time. I kind of grew up watching him under this Zimmer defense, but he has really struggled this year. And PFF broke down both of their grades so far this season. Eric Kendricks is only at a 65.4 grade, and then Jordan Hicks is at a 43.7 grade, which is just, frankly, I mean, it's just not getting it done. And then if you look at the Hicks run defense, his grade is at a 56.9, and Kendrick's run defense is at a 60.2. They have not been great this year. For especially run defense-heavy linebackers, where that is kind of their niche, they have not lived up to expectations at all. So that's why I'm looking at this guy, Brian Asamoah. I think he could be set up to have a very big game against the Lions if he gets the reps. I think he hasn't really gotten that much reps this year just because Kendricks and Hicks have gotten the majority of the snaps on defense for the Vikings. But I do think he deserves and should be in line to be getting more reps because, listen, he's the fastest linebacker on this Vikings roster. He popped during preseason. And if you have Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks just frankly not getting it done, why not? Look at the rookie, Brian Asamoah out of Oklahoma. He has that burst, he has that speed, and he is a very modern-day linebacker with the way he's able to cover tight ends and cover guys, even in the slot. I would give him some reps against the Detroit Lions, switch it up, because the Vikings' run D so far this year has been pretty below average. Now, thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's video. If you want to be featured in the next Vikings mailbag, I want you to go and hit that subscribe button and drop a question down below. I love taking questions from you guys, chopping it up, talking Vikings. It's one of the best parts about this job, obviously. So excited for Sunday. Can't wait to see what happens in the Vikings-Lions game. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let's go Vikes.